Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. We start today's video with a story about what happens when your neighbor thinks your peaceful residential street is the perfect place to park his entire fleet of work trucks. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with a turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Tired of neighbor's truck army? A few calls and he lost it all. When we moved into our new home, it felt like a fresh start. The street was quiet, the houses well kept, and we imagined our kids riding their bikes safely along the sidewalk. The first few days were pure bliss. Friendly waves from neighbors, the soft hum of sprinklers, the sound of birds instead of traffic. It felt like we'd found our little slice of peace. And then came Carlos. We noticed the first truck on moving day. No big deal, lots of people have work trucks, but by the end of that first week, the trucks kept multiplying. What started as one or two turned into a full-blown fleet. At one point, I counted 10. 10 trucks lined up along the street like we lived next to a construction yard. Some were rusting, paint faded, tires sagging. 3 of them had flatbeds piled high with rotting grass clippings, dead branches, and bags of yard waste. The stench on hot days was awful. If we dared open a window, it felt like the smell drifted right into our living room. At first, I told myself to be patient. Maybe it was temporary. Maybe Carlos was between contracts or waiting for permits or something. I didn't want to be that neighbor, the new person who complains about everything. But as the weeks turned into months, it became clear. This was his normal. He wasn't just a guy with a landscaping business. He was running a whole operation right out of his house, and our street was his unofficial truck depot. What made it worse was how it affected daily life. Friends would visit and joke about whether we lived next to a junkyard. The trucks ate up all the parking. I started dreading coming home, knowing I'd have to park down the block and haul groceries or wrangle the kids past the eyesore. And the glares from other neighbors? I could feel them, like we were complicit just by living next door. The breaking point came on a Saturday afternoon. I'd been out running errands with the kids. When we got home, I had to park almost a block away because Carlos's trucks had gobbled up every spot. My youngest tripped on the uneven sidewalk while I juggled grocery bags and tried to help him up. His scraped knee, the tears, that was it for me. I stood there fuming, looking at those trucks like they were mocking me. That night, after the kids were in bed, I pulled out my laptop and reported 5 of the worst offenders to the city, the ones that hadn't moved in ages. A few days later, chaos erupted. I woke up to shouting outside. I peeked through the blinds and saw Carlos pacing back and forth between his trucks as city workers slapped bright orange warning tags on them. His wife was out there too, phone in hand, filming everything and yelling about harassment and our rights. Carlos wasn't ready to give in. He hopped into one of the tagged trucks, fired it up, and tried to move it. In his rush, he backed right into another neighbor's parked car with a sickening crunch. His face went pale, but instead of stopping, he sped off down the block, parking the truck just far enough to technically comply with the move it 1,000 feet rule. The neighbor came out, took one look at his crumpled fender, and immediately called the cops. It didn't take long for things to spiral. The city issued citations for the parking violations, and when they started looking closer, they hit Carlos with fines for running a commercial business from a residential property. Apparently, turning your front yard into a trucking lot isn't exactly permitted. The neighbor he hit took him to small claims court for the car damage. Between the fines, the legal costs, and the repair bill, Carlos's truck empire fell apart fast. One by one, the trucks disappeared. Some got hauled off to an actual commercial lot. Others he sold, probably to cover his mounting expenses. Within a few weeks, the street looked normal again. The quiet returned. My kids could ride their bikes without weaving between giant flatbeds. And me, I could finally park in front of my own house again. Carlos still lives next door, but now he keeps his operation where it belongs, somewhere else. And every time I see an empty curb where those trucks used to be, I smile just a little. The moment your kid tripped because you had to park a block away, that's when it stopped being about aesthetics and became about basic quality of life. Some people only understand consequences when they're forced to face them. And our second story. Entitled parents trashed our lawn and blocked our drive. A few years ago, we lived on a street that turned into absolute chaos twice a day. School run hell. The primary school down the block meant parents swarmed our street like vultures, double parking, blocking driveways, trashing lawns, and ours was their favorite target. Our house sat back from the road with two driveways forming a neat U-shape and a patch of grass out front. That grass crushed to mud most days thanks to entitled parents using it as their private car park. My mom put up with it longer than she should have, but she hit her limit on that day. She came home from work, sun blazing down, the street jammed with cars as usual, and what greets her? A brand new Tesla Model X, gleaming white like it's mocking us, parked smack across one driveway, empty. No driver, no note, just pure arrogance. Mom grits her teeth, steers for the other driveway, and there's the cherry on top, another car, a giant SUV, idling right there like it owns the place. The driver scrolling her phone. Mom gives a polite beep. The woman glances up, smirks, and waves like she's doing Mom a favor. Go ahead, turn around, she gestures. Mom lays on the horn. The woman shrugs, rolls down the window, and yells, "Oh, calm down. You don't need both driveways," before going back to her phone. That's when Mom snaps. She slams her palm on the horn and does not let up. The street fills with the sound. Kids stop in their tracks. Parents turn to stare. The entitled woman's face twists in fury. But Mom isn't done. She flings open her door, marches up to the Tesla, and this is where karma kicks in. Out of nowhere, the Tesla owner appears, jogging back with a coffee in hand, clearly saw the commotion and figured it was time to move. Except he panics, tries to squeeze the Tesla out between parked cars, and misjudges completely. There's a sickening crunch as his fancy electric beast scrapes down the side of the SUV, still parked in our driveway. The entitled woman leaps out of her car, shrieking. Mom stands there, arms folded, watching the disaster unfold like it's the best show she's seen in years. The woman starts yelling at the Tesla driver. He's yelling back, and within minutes, someone's calling the cops. The officers show up, blue lights flashing, and both drivers start pointing fingers. She wouldn't move. He hit my car. They blocked my driveway. Mom calmly steps forward, shows the cops her phone. She'd been recording from the moment she honked the horn. The cops take one look at the footage, nod, and turn on the Tesla driver and the SUV woman. Blocking driveways, causing an accident, not a good look. Both end up with tickets, and the cherry on top, the cops order the Tesla to be towed because it's leaking fluid and can't be safely driven. By the time it's over, the street's cleared, the kids are long gone, and Mom parks up like a queen returning to her castle. From that day on, no one dared block our drive again. The lawn stayed green, the sprinklers stayed intact, and Mom got herself a reputation. The one neighbor you don't mess with. Finally, a story where chaos meets perfectly timed karma. What I love here is how effortless her victory was. She didn't need to yell or argue. She just made sure everyone on that street heard how done she was, and then stood back as Mr. Tesla and Miss SUV managed to turn their smugness into a wrecked bumper and matching citations. And our last story. Neighbors turned my pool into their party zone. I'm a night shift nurse, so my sleep schedule is flipped. I'm usually dead to the world between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. All I want is quiet during that window. What I didn't plan on, my backyard pool turning into a frat house fantasy land thanks to my new neighbors. Last summer, this group of 20-somethings moved in next door. At first, I figured they'd be typical young neighbors, loud sometimes, but no big deal. The first time I noticed them was during a nap-ruining splash fest. I looked out my window and saw two guys doing cannonballs into my pool, the pool I paid to install, maintain, and insure, the pool that sits behind a locked gate. A few days later, it got worse. I woke up to bass thumping so hard it rattled my windows. I peered out to find a group of girls filming TikToks on my diving board while two guys floated a grill across the water on a pool noodle, beers in hand. I blinked like I was hallucinating from sleep deprivation. I tried being nice at first. I left notes on their door. Please respect property boundaries. Next time I looked, they were using one as a coaster for a can of White Claw. I called the cops. The response, noise complaint? It's daylight hours, ma'am. Nothing we can do. Never mind that my teeth were practically chattering from the bass. Finally, I decided to confront them. I walked over mid-party, still in scrubs, exhausted and cranky. Hey, you're in my pool. Get out. One of them, let's call him Party Bro, grinned like I was the entertainment. Bro, chill. We thought you liked the company. Meanwhile, his buddy was peeing on my hydrangeas. So since kindness failed, I moved on to pettiness. I stopped maintaining the pool. No chlorine, no skimming, nothing. I let nature take over. Within 2 weeks, the water turned swamp green. Frogs moved in. The mosquitoes, oh, they thrived. The grill that had been floating, it sank halfway and became some sort of mosquito breeding ground science experiment. One afternoon, I heard high-pitched screams. I dragged myself out of bed and looked outside. There was Party Bro waist deep in my algae soup, frantically swatting at the water. Frog eggs clung to his swim trunks. His friends were gagging on the smell, stumbling out of the yard like they'd seen a ghost. About an hour later, I got a text. Party Bro, WTF is wrong with your pool? I replied, oh, sorry, I thought you liked the natural vibe. That seemed to shut him up for a while, but I wasn't done. I sent them an invoice, $1,200 for unauthorized pool use and biohazard cleanup. I even itemized it, $500 for algae seeding. Yes, I made that up. $200 for frog relocation, also fake, and the rest for structural sanitation. They laughed it off at first until I showed them ring footage of them breaking my gate lock. Suddenly, Venmo notifications started rolling in. Next, I installed a 10-foot privacy fence topped with spikes. On it, I put a big sign, trespassers will be introduced to Larry, my emotional support alligator. There's no Larry, but they don't know that. They stopped using the pool. The house eventually went up for sale, with the listing bragging about resort-style amenities. I hope the algae stain on the pool bottom wasn't what they meant, because it never fully scrubbed out. They didn't move immediately, though. I'd still hear them grumbling during their barbecues. Once I caught Party Bro muttering to his friends about that psycho nurse next door. So whenever they had people over, I made it a habit to blast yakety sax on loop from my bathroom window while I took a shower. Let them try to vibe with that soundtrack. Now I sleep like a baby, and I haven't had to hear bass rattle my fillings loose in ages. Some people only learn when consequences smack them in the face, or in this case, when they're wading through frog spawn. You prove that passive aggression, when executed correctly, is an art form. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.